Hi, everyone. Welcome to our How to Do Research and Get Published webinar on how to get published in a special collection or issue. We're very excited to have you all here today. To get us started, I'd like to introduce you to our team. First, Livia Melandri is a publisher and journals editorial and has been with Sage from 2014 and has worked on a number of different journals and disciplines during her time at Sage, mostly focused in the humanities and social sciences. Next, Kim Mitchell has 25 years of experience in academic journal publishing, with the last 12 years at Sage. Since 2016, she has been part of the Sage Open Access team, contributing in various roles. And most recently, she joined the commissioning team to focus on developing a strategic and impactful special collection program within Sage's open access portfolio. Next, Drew Rothenberg is a child clinical psychologist who has served children and families as a clinician and researcher for over a decade. He's the managing editor of the International Journal of Behavioral Development, and he is a research scientist at the Duke University Center for Child and Family Policy, and in collaboration with the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine. And last, my name is Sean Scarsbrick. I work on the author marketing team at Sage, and my primary role is to support authors and reviewers as they move through the publishing process with ease. Before we move on, I want to first highlight Drew's work. For anybody interested in this, we have the International Journal of Behavioral Development featured. If this may be a good fit for you, please consider registering as a reviewer, or if you have a manuscript that may be a good fit, consider this as well. Throughout today's call, you'll see at the bottom of your screen the Q&A widget. Feel free to send us any question you've got about this topic, and our expert team will be happy to address as many as we can at the end of the call. For any that we don't get to, we will follow up in a blog post. And now, to kind of get us situated, I want to just share this image of a typical author journey from the very early stages of securing funding all the way to article promotion and potentially resubmission. There's a lot going on here, and we've covered a lot of these different areas throughout our webinar series. So we do encourage you to go back and watch recordings, and of course, to continue registering for more. But with that, I'm happy to pass this off to Kim to get us started.
Thank you, Sean. As Sean mentioned, my name is Kim Mitchell. I currently work in the Gold Open Access team with the Special Collection Program. I've been doing that for about a year. It's really enjoyable. I work across multiple journals, from digital health to environmental science to drug safety. So the topics and guest editors that I work with are, sort of all over the place, but really interesting. It keeps my job really, really fun and interesting. So I'm going to talk about why to publish in a special collection. I'm focused again on the Gold Open Access portfolio. I think first and most importantly, for a lot of you, it's the networking opportunities. It really will connect you with researchers and editors working on similar topics and potentially collaborators down the road. Academic credibility. Having your paper accepted for publication in a themed issue really does signal quality and relevance to your colleagues. Increased visibility. We have an editorial and marketing team really focused on our special collection program. We will promote them heavily and to attract the right targeted readership for your papers. And thematic impact, obviously. Your work really contributes to a focused dialogue on the issues in your field, and then often the really most important and pressing issues in your field. And then, of course, Gold Open Access. Anything published in a special collection in one of our Gold OA journals is freely available, freely accessible to anyone, anywhere. Next slide, thank you. Finding the right fit. How do you find the right collection for your work? So browse current and past collections at a journal's website or multiple journals' websites to find a collection that fits within your work. Find recurring themes or gaps that your work can address. Study calls for papers carefully. I know a lot of you probably get multiple emails from different publishers and different journals with calls for papers for different collections or different special issues. Make sure that you flag those that are important to you from journals that you read to see what's coming up in your area and really pay attention to what they're looking for. Check the deadlines and the submission windows for the special collections and probably I'm sure for the special issues as well. We do have a pretty tight window for submissions. Usually it's 6 to 9 months. So make sure that you can plan your work accordingly if you want to contribute to a special collection. Look at the guest editors, understand what they're really interested in. I think this is just like so key and so important. We have short biographies of all the guest editors at our website and the calls for papers for each collection, but do a little more digging, find their institutional webpage, look at them on LinkedIn, look at them on ResearchGate, understand what they've published, because understanding and working with them will be really important to the overall impact that your paper will have later. And finally, if you're not finding the right fit, please do talk to us. We're always looking for new areas to launch collections in. So if there's a journal that you're really interested in working with, please do send an email. There's forms, there's emails all over our website. So please reach out. We'd be really happy to talk to you. Preparing a high quality submission. So my first bit of advice would be my advice to any author is just really please do follow the author guidelines very, very carefully. It's use the correct formatting, the correct referencing style, the word limits. It really will streamline the peer review process for you. So everything is really easily accessible to the reviewers and the editors, and it'll make that process go more quickly. Use clear, concise, and formal language. Avoid jargon, proofread very carefully for spelling, grammar, structure, and make your contribution really clear. Define the research problem, explain why it matters, and highlight the novelty of your findings. But just as importantly, you really need to link your work to the collection. So in the abstract and the introduction and the conclusion, make sure that you're linking your work to the overall theme of the collection. And then finally, a really strong cover letter. Mention the special collection, the relevance of your work, and any prior communication that you've had with the guest editors to that point. And to that point, communication with editors. This is really key and very important, I think. Start reaching out early. Again, this goes back to monitoring calls for papers, know when collections are launching, know when to reach out to the guest editors, confirm with them the deadline for submissions, what you're thinking about contributing. This will hold you in really good stead with them, especially if that deadline looks like it might be a little tight for you and you need to ask for an extension. Having a communication and an in with the guest editor already is helpful. Of course, follow submission etiquette. Don't submit your paper to other journals while you've got it under review with our journal, please. That's just common sense, but it's worth reiterating pretty regularly. Respond thoughtfully to the peer review. Address the comments really thoroughly in the response letter and the point by point, and make sure you revise your manuscript to reflect that feedback. And then stay informed throughout the process. There are people like me working on all of our Gold Open Access journals that are there for you to reach out to. Once you've submitted your paper, we monitor the papers through peer review to make sure things are moving carefully. We also monitor the publication of the entire collection at the end. So please do reach out with any questions that you have so that you know when things are happening. Just some last final tips. Again, I'll say this again, monitor calls for paper regularly. Keep an inbox or keep a mailbox somewhere in your Outlook for all of these and kind of flag those that are of interest to you that you might want to follow up on. Leverage Sage author resources like this webinar. We have a Sage Author Gateway with guidance on ethics, permissions, manuscript preparation. Make sure that you're really using these, especially when submitting to our journals. And then just so importantly, engage with the research community, pre-publication, post-publication. Share your work to enhance your visibility and citation. Mention the special collection, mention the guest editor. That really helps with the whole networking aspect of what these collections are really about in the first place. So I think that's it for me, Sean, but I'm really happy to take any questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Kim. Livia, I'm going to pass it over to you now.
Sure. Thank you, Kim, and hi, everyone. I'm Livia, as Sean mentioned at the beginning. I work in for traditional subscription journal, not open access, and I'm most of the tips and advice that Kim has shared will be valuable for special issues equally and special sections, in non-open access journals. So what is a special issue or a special section? How do they differ from a special collection? A special issue, as probably most of you already know, it's a collection of articles focusing on a specific research topic or theme, and often it's an emerging theme or a theme of high interest. And these issues are typically organized by a guest editor, as we've heard for special collections as well, who is a subject expert. They involve rigorous peer review process, exactly like regular articles in regular issues. And special issues can highlight advancements in a particular field, commemorate events, or present the diverse perspectives on a subject. It's important to say special issues and special sections in regular journals, they are closed. So once it is published, that's a closed collection. You cannot add an article that is topical later on in the process. Although I suspect you can do that for special collections, for example, in open access journal, they're more live, so to say. Next slide, please. Thank you. So why do journals publish special issues or special sections? As I've just said, themed content. Special issues look into a particular area of research, and this allows for some in-depth exploration and analysis, and that might not be possible in regular issues of the journal. It does enhance the profile of a journal because obviously publishing topical and relevant must-have content does demonstrate that the journal has its finger on the pulse, so to speak. Content growth, that's important because special issues can help towards developing the journal editorially, to see it grow and also to support its copy flow where, for example, journals are very niche or experiencing challenges, for example, receiving good quality content. Special issues also support usage and they support citation activity when they are successful. So there is anecdotal evidence that does suggest that special issue articles that tend to be read and cited often more widely than regular articles when they are in special issues that are quite successful. So that's important. Special issues do garner loyalty around the journal among the guest editors and the authors throughout the involvement in the process itself. And then it's important to mention conference association. Keep an eye out during conferences, often offering special issues following a specific conference. For example, may provide the opportunity to develop and consolidate relationships with the prestigious conferences and the societies. But also it can give the chance to novel topics to be discussed and that they are likely to be presented at a conference that is upcoming, for example, for the first time. And lastly, I wanted to mention special issues are a really good way to enhance the diverse geographical coverage in a journal, enlisting the assistance of a guest editor, for example, in a country or region where you would like to see more submissions from or where the journal lacks diversity could be very good ways to encourage more authors from that region. And these, so please do keep an eye out during conferences also for these more specific special issues proposals. Next slide, perfect. As we've heard from Kim, and as I'm sure some of you might have experience of already, special issues need to be planned for. And the recommended timeframes from publishing a call for papers at the very beginning to being able to publish the full special issue in a regular journal, they vary between 12 and 18 months. Any longer than 18 months might mean that the special issue might lose some of its topicality but there are journals that do plan 2 or 3 years in advance, depending on their pipeline. So if there is a journal you're looking at that you're interested in, do have a look on the website or ask the editor or the managing editor what special issues are in the pipeline. And for the schedule around these. I have provided a very basic mock-up schedule here in this slide, just to give you an idea of why it does take quite a long time throughout the process. Next slide. And then just a couple of words on the role of the guest editor. Again, in case any of you in the audience might be interested in taking this on. Guest editor should be a specialist in the chosen subject, obviously, and ideally be well networked international to bring top authors to the journal. And as I've just mentioned, because a special issue does need to be planned for, they should be well organized and have the time available to lead the project throughout many months. They are likely responsible for the special issue proposal and its development, and they are likely to be the referent person for the special issue for authors or prospective authors. And where present, they are likely responsible for drafting all the instructions and the special issue rationale. So always read these in detail and do ask the guest editor when in doubt. And while final decisions even on special issue manuscripts may rest with the journal's editor-in-chief, guest editors will very likely oversee the peer review process in the peer review system, and they will also be able to answer your question throughout the peer review and on revisions, for example. And obviously, there are various benefits in being a guest editor if you were interested. First and foremost, making a meaningful impact in the field, demonstrating leadership in such field. But also, guest editing special issues or special sections does mean adding some editorial and organizational experience to your CV, which does help in joining a journal's editorial team, for example, as an editor, an associate editor, a managing editor. And I think we're going to hear something from Drew as well about that in a minute. Next slide. Why would you publish in a special issue? We've heard most of this from Kim already. It's the same benefits you would have also for special collections. It will mean, again, increased visibility, as I mentioned, potential for higher impact and citations and higher discoverability. Special issues may receive added promotion because that may come not only from the journal itself and from the publisher, but also from the guest editors and obviously the authors of the special issue themselves and the papers being referred to within the same special issue. Also, through various channels, also including social media, which sometimes is proving incredibly effective when promoting special issues content. Special issues can foster connections among researchers working in the same field, leading potential collaborations and future research opportunities. Focused impact. Publishing in a special issue is a way to gain recognition for your work within a specific research community and bring attention and light to topical discussions in that specific community. And lastly, special issues are a platform to explore emerging research areas as well and contribute to the development of new approaches or perspectives, as I've mentioned in the beginning. And last slide from me. It's just a very quick one. A reminder to please use our free resources. Go to our information for authors page to see a full guide to the various editorial processes, and then encouragement to ask questions to the journal editor, to the guest editor, to the managing editor, and to us at Sage. And we will be very happy to assist you. And back to you, Sean.
Thank you, Livia. Drew, I'm happy to pass it off to you now.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. And thanks, Kim and Livia, for your awesome information. It's great to be here. As Sean introduced me at the beginning, my name is Drew Rothenberg, and I'm the managing editor at the International Journal of Behavioral Development. So I'm kind of giving everybody a little bit of a perspective into an editor at one of these journals and how we kind of think about special issues and special sections, and maybe provide you some tips and tricks for how to get published in these types of special sections. So I'm looking forward to presenting and then also hearing your comments at the end as well. So I wanted to start out by just kind of thinking about three different routes to special issue submission, and in our journal in particular. One, and Kim and Livia have kind of spoken to these a little bit as well, but one route is submitting your own special section proposal, which I'll talk about first. The second route is being invited to submit a manuscript to a special section, and I'll talk a little bit about kind of the nuances of that in our journal and other journals like ours in the psychological field. And then the third route would be submitting to an open special section, so a call that's just looking for papers in general to be able to be included in a special issue and section. So I'll dive into all three of those right now. So first, kind of that first route that I was talking about is thinking through the potential to submit your own special section proposal to a journal. So you might be, like Kim and Livia were talking about, someone who's interested in bringing a group of researchers together to be able to write on a specific topic, and be able to present a series of papers on that topic that's especially timely. If you're interested in that, there's a general process that seems to occur at our journal and other journals like ours that I wanted to walk you through. The first step in that process is sending an emailed proposal to the editor-in-chief of that journal, and just mentioning to them, hey, I'm really interested in being able to publish a special section in this journal. I was wondering if you might be interested in this topic. And then I can tell you what to include or what we see included in those proposals and successful proposals to our journal. The first thing would be including the general topic that you want to examine. So, for instance, in our journal, we have special sections or special issues that look at peer victimization across the life course or the impact of climate change on mental health, things like that. Those journal topics are usually the first thing that someone includes in their proposal to us. And then they describe the importance of that topic, and what their special section would add to existing literature on that topic. So just that general topic, kind of hook us with your proposal. You want to bring us in with make us realize how important the topic is by being able to outline it, outline its importance, and also describe how your special section would add to existing literature. The other thing to include on that email proposal would be a potential editorial team. So you as a guest editor, in our journal, typically we have like a guest editor, and a couple of associate editors, or a guest editor, a few different guest editors. So like 1 to 3 editors total in our journal that typically handle the submissions to this special issue. As a guest editor, you would be doing things like screening submissions, making sure they're a good fit for the journal and your special section, assigning out reviewers to be able to look over the papers and kind of provide their evaluation, things like that. So you want to include your general topic, your editorial team. As Livia was mentioning too, you also want to include your proposed timeline. And I guess it comes as no surprise because we work very closely with Livia, but we usually try to get our special issues out in 18 months for the exact reason that she highlighted, which is these special issues and sections are usually about hot topics, topics of high interest to people in your field. So you want a timeline that is able to capitalize on the field's interest in those topics and get things out in under 18 months. The other thing that you'd want to include in your proposal is providing a potential list of papers and interested authors that could be included in the proposal. This is especially true if you're looking to propose sort of an entire invited special section or special issue. So one where you have an idea of not only the topic and its importance in your editorial team, but also the research teams you would like to include and invite in the special section. And then the last thing, so those are really the major things to include in your proposal. It would be the general topic, your editorial team, your proposed timeline, a potential list of papers and interested authors if you're in that invited special section, kind of like mindset for how you would want to establish a proposal. The last thing I wanted to mention is that submitting your own special section proposal is much more, that opportunity is much more likely to present itself if you are part of an editorial team on a journal. So for instance, one of the things that we invite our associate editors to do over the course of their 3-year term at our journal is, if they're interested, as proposing a special section and following up on it, and being able to include it as part of the special issues in our journal. So it's also just, this is a little pitch to, if you're interested, kind of get involved on the editorial side of things at a journal, because I think that you can shape how special sections are rolled out at a journal in that way. So that's route one, is just submitting your own special section proposal. And I can dive into the second route right now, which is, let's say that you're invited to submit to a special section. So that's that. I kind of alluded to that already. Special guest editors of special issues or special sections in our journal might say, hey, I have 3 or 4 different research teams that already I know could be able to contribute papers, and they invite those research teams to contribute papers to a special section. I can talk you through the process of that. The first, I wanted to kind of start with like a little bit of an insider tip, which is kind of nice. At least at our journal, if you submit to a special section, as long as the submission aligns with the journal editorial standards and editorial sort of like general ideas, the submission actually gets sent straight through to the guest editor editorial team. So a lot of times at our journal, part of my job is to be a little bit, for lack of a better word, persnickety about the details, really focused on the details of making sure your word limits within word limits, making sure that everything is aligning the way that it should. And I might send your paper back 1 or more times. One of the nice things about a special section is I get your submission, I look at it, I say, yep, it's within the word limits, it looks like it's lined up with journal standards, and then I send it straight through to your guest editor. So there's a little bit of streamlining that happens when you submit to a special section and special issue that I think is really nice for authors to experience. The other thing is, when you're invited to a special section, to submit to a special section, you want to make clear in your cover letter that you're submitting to a specific special section, and note that you were invited to do so. That always helps managing editors at journals. It helps catch our eyes and say, oh, right, okay, this paper is one to be able to kind of fast track straight to those guest editors so that they can be the ones to handle it and send out for peer review. You also want to make it clear as part of your introduction to the manuscript how your manuscript fits into the special section that you were invited to be a part of. You just want to mention how this research is timely, how it's aligning with the call for the special section as part of that introduction, so that readers also know that this is part of a larger collection of papers. And then finally, if you're invited to submit to a special section, I kind of think about it as a really good place to showcase cutting edge work that might be more novel. You're still going to get the same rigorous peer review, but one of the nice things is, if you're invited to submit to a special section, you're much more likely to get sent out to peer review, and much more likely to have an editor who's familiar with your work and your methodology. So it might be a really nice place if you're like, oh, this paper is kind of a risky paper. It's cutting edge. I'm not sure how an established field will think about it. Might be a nice place to submit. A special section might be a nice place to submit it, so that you kind of give that paper a bit of a fighting chance with your guest editors who are familiar with your work. So that's route 2, is being able to submit a paper to a special section you were invited to be able to submit to. And so now I'll talk about route 3, which is submitting to an open special section. I think both Livia and Kim mentioned these types of special sections as well. You are probably most familiar with these, where you see a call on a journal's website. It says, hey, we're really interested in papers on peer victimization across the life course, for instance. And we would like all interested authors to maybe submit an abstract, and then of those abstracts for potential papers, we'll go ahead and select the ones that we think are most a best fit for the special section that is open. So kind of thinking about that kind of call, here's some tips that I have for you to think through if you're interested in submitting to an open special section. The first is, a lot of times these open special sections or open special issues send out a call for abstracts, which then are selected from, and final manuscript submissions are chosen from those abstracts. So it's almost a 2-step process, where you say abstracts are due for this special section. Here's a special section we're interested in publishing. Here's our general topic. as guest editors, and we're creating an open call for authors to submit abstracts by a specific due date. And then once you submit that abstract, the guest editors will also say, from those abstracts, we'll let authors invited to submit a full manuscript know by, let's say, a month after that initial abstract due date. And then they say, the editors say, final manuscripts are due in, let's say, 3 months or 4 months after that initial invitation, that initial abstract submission and decision date. So you kind of have that two-step process. You submit the abstract, see if you're selected, and then go ahead and write your full paper if you're invited to submit further. That's a great way to just get, it's kind of like a slightly lower workload ask from you as authors. So you could kind of like, if you have you develop usually like a 500-word abstract, you send it in, you see if that's of interest to someone in the special section. And then the guest editors will say, yeah, this is a great fit, or no, it's not a great fit. And if it is a great fit, then you can write out your full paper. So I really like that process as a way to kind of save everybody some time. If abstracts are not asked for, at least at our journal, and I feel like at a lot of other journals, editors appreciate this too, we encourage you to reach out to the guest editors ahead of time in an email to gauge the appropriateness of fit for your paper for that special section. Again, it's just another way to save time and be able to make sure that you don't kind of create a whole research manuscript that's tailored specifically to the special section that might not actually be a great fit for it. So save yourself some time, even if there's no abstracts associated, call for abstracts associated with the special section. Go ahead and email the guest editors and just ask and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about writing about. Does this feel like a good fit to you? Again, just like with invited submissions, if you submit to an open special section, oftentimes in our journal, as long as it meets your basic editorial standards, it gets sent straight through to guest editors, which I think is a really nice thing. You know that your work is in the hands of the people who will be most interested in evaluating it. You, once again, also want to make a clear case in your introduction. It's especially important for open special sections. You want to make a clear case in the introduction about how your work aligns with the special section, and want to be very clear from the outset about how it fits in. And then the final thing I wanted to mention, which is a little bit of, it's a really fun process, but a slightly different process than what might normally happen with manuscript submissions, is if you're asked to revise and resubmit your manuscript as part of a special section, you also might be asked to cite other papers in the special section. And so as the special section or issue is developed, you kind of have an opportunity to be able to learn what other researchers are doing and connect your work with theirs as well. So that is the third and final kind of route to submitting to open special sections, or submitting to special sections with IJBD. I could just end with some final thoughts. One of the things that I really wanted to mention, I know I mentioned it earlier, but just to mention again, is I feel like special sections and issues are a fantastic way to showcase cutting edge or new work, because you get the same rigorous peer review that you normally would throughout sort of submissions into a field of study, but with the recognition that you're trying to create novel insights in a field. So special sections and issues, like we've been mentioning, are a lot of times on really hot contemporary topics of wide interest to people. And so cutting edge research is especially, and new methods and new ways of thinking about things, I think might be especially welcomed in special sections and issues, because that's exactly what we're looking for, is being able to think about new perspectives on new topics. I also think special sections are a fantastic way to network academically with colleagues. So, for instance, in psychology, many bigger names with larger labs are more likely to be interested in having someone on their team contribute to a special section because of its focus and collaborative nature. So bringing together a special section or being part of a special section is a great way to be able to collaborate with, I feel like, a lot of leading names in fields. And just to give you a personal example, I am the team that I work with at Duke right now came about because I worked with the leader of my team, Jen Lansford, on a special section, in a special issue, in a research journal. And then we wound up realizing we worked really well together. And I've been at Duke for close to a decade now as a result of that initial work in a special issue and special section. So it's just an awesome way to network. And And then also guest editing a special section is a fantastic way to get used to the editorial process. It's actually how I got pulled in to the editorial side of things. And I've learned that I really love it. I really love being a managing editor and helping authors develop their submissions and manuscripts. And I wouldn't have known that without guest editing a special section. So it's a really great kind of dip in the water, first step to be able to think through guest editing a special section if you're kind of interested in the editorial side of academic peer review. So I think that might be all for me, unless I'm missing a slide. So I can turn it back over to Sean.
Thank you, Drew. So before we move into the Q&A, I want to just quickly wrap this up, this part of the conversation up, to say today is just one of our many webinars. We've got a handful planned for the rest of the year, so please do register for some of these. Next week, also on Monday, very excited, we have a webinar about the open access portfolio here at Sage. So if you're interested in that, learning a little bit more about what it means to publish in an open access journal, definitely consider that. We're going to be happy to have Kim back as a speaker there. Something I'll leave on the screen just for a moment is a plug for our author newsletter. So anybody here who is interested in developing further as an author, consider signing up for our newsletter. You'll receive information about publishing resources and also get a first shot to register for some upcoming webinars. So I'll leave this on the screen here as we dive into the Q&A, so feel free to sign up if you're interested. And as we're talking now, please continue to send any questions you've got through the Q&A. I will also note, I see a number of questions coming through asking for slides, recordings, and certificates of attendance. Yes, all of those will be sent to you via email within the next week or two. All right, so to get us started, I've got a question here for our panelists. It can take a lot of time to find the right journal to fit a paper. And then it may take even longer to potentially find the right fit issue, collection, section. Do you have any tips for researchers to find the right fit in a scalable way?
I can take this first question. I think it's a really fantastic one. The way that I do this, and this is related to special sections or issues, but also more generally, is I think about two different ways to do this. One is based on the literature that you're reading, like that you're inspired from on your work. I go straight to the reference section in those academic articles, and I go ahead and identify what are the journals that are popping up over and over again in those reference sections of the articles that are inspiring me and my work. And then those are the journals that I start looking at as potentially submitting to. So I think that's really helpful as a way to kind of scale your submissions to the particular audiences that might be most interested in your work. And I've had some good success with that. I know colleagues that have as well. So I think that that's a nice place to start. The other thing too is like, I know that maybe emailing like an editor in chief or whatever of a journal can feel a little bit intimidating. But I promise, like nobody on at least the journals that I've worked with, no one's too busy to be able to look over and answer a question about, hey, I have this article, I have this paper, here's a 200-word summary of the abstract and my methods. Would it be a good fit for your journal? I think that you can get a lot of editors or someone on editorial boards responding very quickly in that way. So I also think that if you're not sure about journal fit, feel free to reach out and ask because it saves us time on our end of things. Like our journal gets about 500 or 600 submissions a year, and it saves us time to be able to redirect you at that early stage as opposed to kind of like having to look through the paper and then tell you that it might not be a good fit later. So I think emailing early is another great way to be able to kind of think through how do you scalably submit your work to places that might be most pertinent for and most interested in it. I hope that helps answer that question a little bit.
Very helpful, thank you. Kim, Livia, anything else to add, or has Drew covered it well?
Very well covered.
I think you covered it really well. And I just want to reiterate the point that, the academic editors that I work with are really open to questions and emails. They're really responsive. So please do reach out. That's, part of their job and their role as, an editor of a journal. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. I've got another question here. It's about publishing specifically in a special issue. Are there any publication charges associated with it?
I can take this one if my microphone collaborates. Um, so for special issues published in subscription journals, there are no charges and no fees. They would apply to open access journals. For regular special issues or special sections, including, for example, a journal that Drew was talking about, there are no charges on submission or publication.
Perfect. Thank you. Um, I've got another question here. Are there any tips on how to gauge what future special collection or issue topics may be? It's very hard to know if you should submit now, maybe wait for something that's a better fit in the future. Do you have any advice for researchers on this?
I can take this one at least as it pertains to special collections. For a lot of our journals, we do have a special collection pipeline. We're working with guest editors for potential collections coming up months in advance. So I would say please reach out to the journal staff, the publishing editor, the commissioning manager. If you can't find our email, there is a general email box and things will get sent to us to ask about upcoming collections and to send us an abstract or the title of your paper. We will look to find the place for it. We get lots of questions like this on a regular basis. If we can't find anything, then I think that it's totally appropriate to to submit your paper to the general volume if the journal that you do feel is the right fit for your work. Don't hold on to it for too long. So yeah.
Great. Thank you, Kim. Okay, let's see. Moving forward, I see a question that just came through about abstracts, which is very interesting. So if your abstract is accepted, can you make modifications to the methodology while writing the full paper submission?
I can take this one because I've seen this several times in our journal. I think the answer to that question is yes, with the caveat that you probably want to be very transparent with the guest editors about how the methodology has changed. And then it'll be up to their discretion to decide if the methodology is kind of like veered too far away from what they initially accepted. But generally, what I've seen is like you wind up, at least in our field, you wind up seeing that, oh, the data is a little more complex than I thought, and so I need to use a more rigorous method to be able to evaluate the data. Or, oh, I'd forgotten to control for this other variable that might be affecting my results, and so I really need to make sure to add that in. Anything that kind of adds methodological rigor, pretty typically people welcome because it's stronger science. So no, I think for the most part, you can absolutely make modifications to the methodology. It just might be you just want to run it by transparently the guest editors and see what they think about it, and have a good conversation about whether that methodology is going to be acceptable. But generally, like at our journal, we usually see the methodology having to become more complex or rigorous, and we totally understand that.
Awesome. Thank you, Drew. I see a number of questions coming through about support in writing, and one of them is specifically for early career researchers. Um, Curious, Livia, can I pass it over to you to ask? Do you have any tips for early career researchers who are looking to publish in special issues or collections?
Yeah, sure. And also, I'm happy to then leave it to Drew and Kim as well, in case they have anything to add. From a publisher's perspective, I would say there are two things that early career researchers would need to really keep an eye out for. And they're both connected to networking. One would be to bear in mind that there are journals or rather associations and societies that have very developed programs for early career researchers. And they definitely get a lot of help in terms of how to write papers that are acceptable in a journal. Not only, but sometimes these programs do involve paper development workshop around conferences, so just before conferences, for example, aimed specifically at early career scholars. And there might be regional workshops, for example, that are then being developed in a special issue, for example, for specific journals. So I would say to keep a close eye to associations and their activities, to conferences, and to all of that sort of networking that can really help them get more involved within the publishing sort of life cycle from writing a paper onwards. And also during conferences, please come and see us at the publisher stand. We would be able to suggest if there is anything going on. And we would be able to get in touch with the editors of our journals if there are specific questions from early career scholars.
I can add a little bit to what Livia is saying as well, which is I really agree with her about taking advantage of like programs to be able to help foster writing skills and develop writing skills as an early career researcher. Because I think those are super important, and I think that they help shape the quality of your writing. And I also think that kind of being able to find that sort of training and insight is really valuable, because this is a little not bad news, but it's good news and bad news. But from a managing editor's perspective, when and from an editor in chief's perspective too, I would argue, or at least a guest editor's perspective in a special issue, when we get papers into the special issue, unless we have explicit focus on early career research, we do evaluate the research the same, regardless of who's submitting it. So there's not really like an early career like bump or benefit that you get on you don't get an early career benefit of the doubt when you submit the paper in at a journal. And that's just because we want to make sure to uphold the same rigorous standards of peer review for everybody. And so I think getting the training on the front end is a really important part of being able to kind of submit to these special issues and special sections. Because unfortunately, we can support in a lot of ways, but we unfortunately on the editorial like peer review side can't kind of give that early career bump without potentially like hurting the integrity of the scientific peer review process.
Great. Thank you both for that. Very useful information. We've got another question here. Someone was asking, what type of research is currently being prioritized in special issue publications? Are they typically theoretical, empirical, or maybe case study based? Do you have any insights on that?
I can I can take this from a psychological perspective, but also kind of try to answer a little bit more generally. I bet Kim and Livia might have like expertise on what they're seeing across different fields. But in the psychological world that I am a part of, I see primarily theoretical and empirical special issues asking for calls for papers. Um, Case studies aren't out of there are journals in my field, there are journals that specialize in case studies. And so I think that a lot of the special issues would be in those types of journals. But the type of research that's being prioritized in the psychological world is usually theoretical, like let's bring together a special issue that talks about different theoretical perspectives on a topic, like new ideas or ways of thinking about a topic, and kind of summarizing theoretical frameworks. Or the other thing that we see is empirical research, but on like the most kind of interesting topics in a field. So for like a great example was that our journal was thinking about climate change and its impact on mental health. That's just something that seems to be talked about the world over right now, and so that was thinking about that larger issue and its connection with mental health was something that we were really interested in. Another one that's a good example from the psychological realm is sort of like interconnectedness in social media and technology and how that's impacting psychology. And I think that when you think about sort of like what are a lot of special issues prioritizing, you can think about like what are the headlines that you hear about in the news, and then how do they impact your field? That's generally what some of the empirical like special issues are looking at. But but there's such a wide variety of calls for special issues that that's by no means the only answer to that question. It's like if I had to identify the most common like sort of topics and special issues, that's what I would say. But there's such a wide variety that I think you could probably find a special issue for a lot of the different things that you're interested in researching.
Um, I would just add that yes, I agree that I think the empirical research is what it tends to be prioritized for a lot of collections. But again, this is where really reading the call for papers for a specific collection really is important, because often, well, always our guest editors will lay out what types of papers they're looking for. Are they looking for papers with a new theoretical framework or to discuss frameworks versus empirical research, or both, or or case studies welcome, and they'll include that as well. So I think it's really important to look at what the guest editor has outlined in the call for papers in terms of what they're really looking for from potential authors.
Great. Thank you, Drew and Kim. Um, I think now we're going to move on to our last question. We've got lots of good questions coming in, but we've got one last one. Can you co-author a paper that is published within a special collection or issue?
Yes, of course. Like any other paper, you can be a co-author, work with a group, a team, to co-author a paper. We see lots of collaborative groups working on papers from the same institution or from multiple institutions. So yes, I don't know, Drew, if you want to, or Olivia, if you want to add to that at all, but that's a pretty easy one to answer. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It applies the same to special issues. Absolutely. Yeah, you can go through a paper.
That's perfect. Well, I'd like to thank first our panelists. Thank you to Kim, to Drew, to Olivia for your expert insights. And thank you to everyone who is attending live, and to everyone who is watching this recording. We hope you found it useful. As noted, anyone attending live, you will receive follow-up from us in the next week or two. But in the meantime, we hope to see you in a future webinar. And yes, in the meantime, please take care. Thank you very much.